Stomach 2 is located 1 cun inferior to a pupil looking directly forwards. To find this point, you'll need to stand directly in front of the person, palpate inferior to the pupil by about 1 cun, and you should feel a dip, which is the infraorbital foramen. Don't press too hard though, because there's a nerve here and it can be quite tender. Stomach 3 is located inferior to a pupil looking directly forwards, level with the lower border of the alanasi. To find this point, you need to stand directly in front of the person, have them look forwards, think of a line running through their pupil and coming down, and marking this point on a level with the inferior border of the alanasi. This point is frequently just lateral to the nasolabial groove. Stomach 5 is located directly anterior to the angle of the mandible. So the first thing you need to do is to locate the angle of the mandible correctly. Palpate along its posterior border, inferior border, until you find where the jaw is changing direction. Then come forwards over the masseter muscle. If a person clenches their masseter muscle, you'll be able to find a nice groove just as its anterior border. And this is your stomach 5. To locate stomach 6, palpate the posterior and inferior border of the mandible to find the angle of the mandible where the jaw is changing direction. Come 1 finger breadth superior and anterior to the angle of the mandible. When the person clenches their jaw, the masseter muscle comes up. When they relax, your finger will fall into the nice dip that is stomach 6. Stomach 7 is located directly superior to stomach 6. Palpate upwards until you come to the zygomatic arch, and then come back down until you fall into a dip that is just anterior to the condyloid process of the mandible. Stomach 8 is located directly superior to stomach 6 and stomach 7. So run your finger up in a line from stomach 6 and stomach 7, projecting up onto the corner of the head until you're in a nice depression just superior to the temporalis muscle. Gallbladder 1 is located very approximately half a cun lateral to the outer canthus of the eye. Palpate laterally to find the lateral orbital margin. Mark your point just on the edge of that orbital margin. Be careful not to move back into this fleshy area because there are other points here. When a person opens their jaw, a groove opens up anterior to the tragus. Gallbladder 2 is located in this groove, anterior to the infratragic notch. Gallbladder 7 is located 1 finger breadth directly anterior to Sanjiao 20. Gallbladder 14 is located above the pupil looking directly forwards, 1 cun superior to the eyebrow. To locate this point, you need to stand directly in front of the person, have them look forwards. Remember, the distance from the centre of the glabella to the anterior hairline is 3 cun. which would enable you to calculate your Wunsen. You can locate this point in a dip that's formed when the brow starts to come away from the skull. To locate gallbladder 20, palpate up the groove in between the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius muscles. As you get to the base of the occiput, you will find a nice depression. Gallbladder 20 is in the centre of that depression. Bladder 2 is located in a depression at the medial aspect of the eyebrow. Palpate along the supraorbital margin until you locate a nice dip at the medial end of the eyebrow. That's your bladder 2. Bladder 4 is located half a cun into the anterior hairline, 1/3 of the distance from do24 to stomach 8. Bladder 4. Large intestine 20 is located in the nasolabial groove, level with the midpoint of the ala nasi. The ala nasi is the nostril. So find the superior border of the nostril, the inferior border of the nostril, hence the midpoint, and come out into the nasolabial groove. Do20 is located in relation to the midpoint between the glabella and the occiput. Place the heel of your palm on the glabella and the occiput. Fold your fingers around the skull to find the midpoint. Do20 is located 1 cun posterior to that midpoint. It typically lies in a nice dip. There are several other nice dips slightly further back, which are other do points, so don't be tempted to go further back than 1 cun posterior to that midpoint. Do23 is located on the anterior midline, 1 cun posterior to the anterior hairline. We take the distance between the centre of the glabella and the anterior hairline as being 3 cun, so divide this into 3 to get your 1 cun to move back to locate Do23. Sanjiao 17 is located in the dip behind the earlobe. It's between the ramus of the mandible and the mastoid process. Be careful that you don't put this point on bone, it's in between the bones in a dip. Sanjiao 22 is located in a nice depression about half a cun anterior to the upper root of the ear.
So Sanjiao 3 is on the dorsum of the hand, proximal to the 4th and 5th metacarpal phalangeal joint. Locate this with the hand in a loose fist. Run your finger over the joint head in between the 4th and 5th bones. Just wiggle the fingers to make sure that you're not on the bone, and popping your point in.
Extra point supreme yang is located half a cun posterior to the midpoint of a line joining the outer canthus and the lateral extremity of the eyebrow. Make an imaginary line, come halfway, move back half a cun until you're into this fleshy area which is lateral to the lateral orbital margin.
Large intestine 4, you're going to find the length of the second metacarpal bone. So running your finger down, finding the base, making sure that you're not actually on the carpal bones themselves, finding the midpoint of that shaft of bone, coming between the first and second metacarpals, nearer to the second than the first in the muscle.
Large intestine 10 is located 10 cun proximal to large intestine 5 on a line heading towards large intestine 11. Palpate along that line and fall into a nice groove in the muscle at 10 cun. Large intestine 11 is located at the midpoint between lung 5 and the prominence of the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Typically, this is at the end of the transverse cubital crease when the arm is fully flexed. Sanjiao points on the forearm are best located with the arm laying flat on the bed and the elbow turned outwards. To find Sanjiao 5, come 2 cun proximal to Sanjiao 4 in between the radius and the ulna. You should be on the radial side of the tendon of extensor digitorum communis. If the person wiggles their fingers, this tendon will come into relief. Liver 2 is located half a cun proximal from the edge of the web margin between the first and second toe. Stomach 36 is located approximately 13 cun superior to the prominence of the lateral malleolus on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. The easiest way to find it is to palpate down the tibial tuberosity. Find the base of the tibial tuberosity and move slightly laterally until you fall into a nice dip on the anterior border of tibialis anterior. This point is also 3 cun inferior to the inferior border of the patella.